good?
Good.
Being 7 o'clock, I'll call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. First order of business is public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to review of minutes for March 17th. We have regular minutes and executive sessions minutes for March 17th. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept both the regular minutes and the executive session minutes for March 17th.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Board of Health with an update on COVID-19. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
As of this morning, we've got 1,475 people that contracted COVID. We're watching right now 19, and we've got 1,456 that are completely off. We are actually trending down in the last couple of weeks. At least for the last 2 weeks, we've been in the teens. Other than that, what's been in the 20s, 30s, 40s, so that's at least looking up for us.
For us to get into the green, we'd have to have less than 10 cases a week. Right now we're at 8 for this week, so hopefully we're just a couple weeks away. Start making a little bit more progress.
We've had, three. What we've been involved with, we did the one up at 3 clinics, but the senior citizens, along with UMass, did 2 back-to-back weeks with close to 100 apiece. They did an excellent job. They've contacted the seniors. They had them in here. UMass and Debbie Goodsell and Shannon, they did a great job. Well, we're in the process of trying to, between us and Fitchburg, try to get doses because that, what's that place up in Kmart, they're trying to make that a mass center, and we should know probably by either end of this week or beginning next week if that's going to fly, and we'll hopefully our group will be able to go up there and get shots.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
We wanted to talk to you tonight about, we're getting a lot of requests, the obvious stuff, youth sports.
Yep.
Recreation, but there's some big ones. I mean, we have to talk about, I guess, the town meeting, elections, graduation, Old Home Day. We're notified today they want to do a function in the park for Gordon Langton. So we're looking for a little bit of direction on these folks need some time frames.
Hold on. Yeah, do you want to? Yeah, it's. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a couple of big ones. We're just looking for some direction. I mean, we're working the numbers down here. I think it should be a group of us, that maybe a couple of selectmen, a couple of people from the school committee and the Board of Health kind of figure out how we want to do this sooner than later.
Yeah.
There's a lot of planning that's going to go into Old Home Day and the event for Gordon Langton and, of course, town meeting and the elections. So we like to sit down and try and iron out some of this stuff on what we want to do and what we don't want to do.
Has there been any indication from the state, because, even talking to Mr. Duffy about when downtown reopens, we want to make a splash there, but with such shifting sands, we're trying to figure that out behind the scenes too. So has the state given us any indication where these phases are going or what it's going to look like in June or August or October?
They're day to day,
Yeah.
you know, we have no idea, so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree, we should sit down. It's just, I
Okay.
think people have to understand that, I mean, hopefully this is heading in the right direction, but, you know, it's been a moving target for 14 months, so,
Yeah,
yeah. Let's,
okay.
when's the first, I hope what's the first thing we have to deal with?
Well, right now, I mean, we met Monday night, we approved a lot of the youth sports
Yeah.
and activities. We put the basketball nets, we approved to put those back up this week. So all we're waiting for is rosters for the final approval for like Little League and youth soccer and some stuff with the Parks and Rec. So that's all we're waiting for that. So that's good to go. We're more concerned with the bigger events, you
Yep.
know, with the elections and graduations and Old Home Day and you know, they're asking, you know, what can we do? When can we get started? And we you know, if it was today, we wouldn't have that answer. I don't think we want 10,000 people in Central Park
Right.
for a weekend right now, coming from all over the state. So I think there should be a few boards involved in decision-making when it comes to that.
Sure. All right, well, let's connect and
Okay.
and sort it out. I mean, I work at a college, and we're doing our commencement on May 1st, but it's at Fenway, and everybody's spread out. You know, they're in the grandstands above the dugout, and you know, your little pod, you need a 14-day clearance ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be clean with no, like, contact tracing or anything. So, you know, I don't know how realistic mass gatherings before the summer are going to be. I mean, we have a playbook for the election, thankfully, and for town meeting. Do you think that, does the state exemption still qualify, or is that expired as far as the quorum goes for town meeting? Town meeting? Like the quorum reduction, is that still in play, or? Okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we should get everything in front of us and see what's going on. Just, people need to manage their expectations.
Yeah.
It's not over by any stretch.
No,
So,
and you know, we actually, we have to prepare for, in the event it rains. I mean.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've got some talking to do, I guess,
yeah. Okay.
or some planning.
All right. We'll be in touch tomorrow.
All right, sounds good.
Any questions? Yeah, please.
Sure.
Okay. Does anyone have a problem with me and Ed?
Absolutely, I think the chair should be
Okay.
one of those
All right.
two people, so.
And any board decision is going to have to come back to us anyway, so, okay,
Okay.
great. Any
All right,
other
thank you.
questions? Sorry.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, guys. Next up, we have a livery license public hearing, 166 Grove Street, Boundless Limousine LLC, with Kyle Casey as manager. Mr. Casey. Welcome. You just state your, I guess, that's good for name and address? Yeah. Why don't you tell us what you're looking to do? Actually, yep. Do you want to pull that mic over? Sorry. No technical problems tonight.
What would you like to know?
Sorry?
What would you like to know?
What are you looking to do?
I'm just a primarily airport A to B transportation, black car livery service, interstate travel through Massachusetts.
Terrific. I'm going to open up the public hearing part of this. Is anyone here to speak in favor of this proposal? Is anyone here to speak in opposition? I'm going to close that. Does the board have any questions or comments? Hearing none. What's the pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the requested license to Boundless Limousine LLC.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next up is Phil Duffy for an update on our downtown improvement project. Yeah, that's a good one.
Good evening, members. With
you?
your permission, I'll remove my mask while speaking. Is that okay? Okay.
Look out.
There we go. I was asked to come this evening and give you an update on our status report on our downtown reconstruction project. The project remobilized on March 29th. If you've been downtown, you've seen the work they've been doing.
They're flying.
They are flying. They've commenced the removal of curbing and sidewalks. Their plan is that they've already begun, was to begin at the corner of Union and High in front of the Mexican restaurant, and then just go down High, then up Church, back down Church, up High, all the way to Water Street, then turn around and come back the other way. They'll be proceeding in phases. Their timing is mostly set by how fast curb setting crews can go. They're waiting for probably another week or two, probably at least a week, maybe two, to get into a phase where the likelihood or the possibility of nighttime temperatures dropping below 40 degrees has passed to pour concrete. But it's exciting to see. You know, they've got the sidewalks removed. They've moved the back of the sidewalk where some retaining walls are going in. You may have seen today the precast foundations for the light posts are on site.
That's what those are. Okay.
Next week, the electricians and the company that's installing the irrigation conduit will be in doing their subsurface work. To be honest, we've been very pleased with the work of our contractor to date. We've been very satisfied with the work of our engineering consultant. Been very satisfied with the work of our communications consultants. The contractor, on the record, will say that project completion is probably around the middle of July. That's well in advance of the schedule originally formulated by our engineer for the project. But I honestly think they're going to be done sooner than that. They're moving real fast. You hate to say, you hate to say, to jinx yourself, but we've encountered surprisingly few wild cards as we've gone along. There have been very few change orders so far.
Good.
And we wait to the end on all these large construction jobs. There's always a balancing change order at the end to address line items that were included in the bid and may or may not have been, installed or not. A lot of volumes of soils. We eliminated a lot of the drainage structures because of subsurface work, subsurface exploration the contractor did, and we found out there were places where there were conflicts where we, simplified the design dramatically. So yeah, that's what's going on. I should say as well, we found out on Monday that we received a grant of just under $102,000 from the Shared Streets and Winter Spaces program. That grant will, among other things, allow us to install the wayfinding that was developed a few years ago for the downtown locations, including like the corner, like up at Depot Square and outside the project area, but inside the downtown, and also to install lighting on the alley that connects High Street back to the church parking lots. That alley is frequently used in the evenings by people who are heading to the theater or so the restaurants and those kinds of places. So we'll also be able to provide amenities to businesses that wish to use the sidewalk, primarily for dining. So, shade devices, tables, chairs, that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Any questions, Ed?
Yes.
Oh, you're next, sorry.
So I have concerns about just the traffic passing in the middle of High Street right now, and I had talked to Mr. Duffy about just what the plans were going to look like for the angle of parking spaces and so on. The bricks that are on the existing sidewalk in front of Aubuchon's is 18 inches, the two brick widths?
Two brick widths is, that's roughly 16 inches, yeah.
Yeah. So is there any possibility of being able to set the curb back to where those bricks would kind of, set them back 16 to 18 inches to kind of create some of that space in the middle? Because I have serious concerns that the size of the vehicles in the passing of traffic is going to be very challenging, and 18 inches would help, but
The shorter answer, Matt, is not without great difficulty and expense. It's not really moving the curb line. It would also require moving all the drainage structures along the street, and that's big money to move drainage structures. Those are 4 foot wide, 6 foot tall structures that go underground. The downtown steering committee did briefly look at the possibility of reducing the sidewalk depth. The discussions that were had at that time advocated for the conclusion was reached, and I can't say that it was discussed in great depth. The conclusion was reached that given the dynamics of downtown and the potential benefit to be obtained by moving the curb back, that the benefit wasn't worth the cost. That particular stretch of High Street, in that block between Union and Church, is actually the widest paved width. It's actually more challenging up above. But the width of the road as it is now, we have the travel lanes, I think, are 11 feet wide, or maybe 12 feet wide. I'd have to check the top of my head. They're adequate. They're what is typical for a travel lane, and making them a couple feet wider would the most likely outcome would be that cars would feel a little bit more comfortable traveling a little faster down the street. Drivers are very wary when they drive down that street, and that has the benefit of having very aware drivers. So, the crash incidences on High Street are very few.
I think in terms of talking about controlling the speed of that, which cars are passing, I think that people are likely to avoid High Street than to have to experience that, because even, going down and having to stop because another vehicle's coming the other direction, it seems to go counter to the project, right? Because you want people to be down there.
You do want people to be down there, but you want people to be parked down there. There'd be no scenario where we could actually have the kind of width to create a passing lane, if that's what you're talking about. And traffic flow doesn't really rely on informalities like having just enough space to squeeze by. So to date, the decision has been made to keep the curb line where it is.
I was on the downtown steering committee, and I've heard the complaints that we don't need the 14-foot sidewalks, that big trucks can't park there, and it's not safe to travel. What people really need to get their heads around is that we didn't design that downtown for cars. We designed it for people. And if you want to go fast or get somewhere quickly, there are other ways to get there. This is a downtown district where people hopefully are going there to get out of their cars and walk around and do things. So I love the sidewalks. The committee did look at this, and I think it's a great plan. When it's done, I think people are going to understand why we made the decision we did. Any other questions? Please.
John. That was the contractor's forecast before mobilization at the end of March was middle of July, but I honestly think it's going to be appreciably sooner than that if they're able to maintain the pace that they're on currently. Well, they're going to install, I believe, my understanding is that the light posts have already been delivered and they're stored at the DPW lot. So the foundations are on site, those are going in, the conduit will go in, and they'll go, I presume they'll be, the lights themselves will be installed after the sidewalks are poured. And I'm not sure how long it would take to do all the lighting on the street. Probably a couple days, probably not terribly long amount of time, but I might be speaking prematurely because it's a more complex assembly than typical because of the irrigation that's coming up through the light posts. We don't have one now, but I'd be happy to ask that question of the contractor and engineer as to if to.
And
No, no, what the paving right now is what's called the sub-base, so there'll be a finish coat on that. I believe it's 2 inches in our street. There'll be no curb reveals above 7 inches.
Any other questions? I just wanted to echo your comments on the communication effort here. I'm thrilled with the work they're doing there, and if anybody has any questions or is curious about how this is going, you can sign up on the town website for email updates. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're doing weekly, if not more, photographs and anticipated schedules for the week. So if you're curious at all what's coming in the next week or two, I encourage you to check it out. It's been terrific, and I'm really happy. Even over the winter, they helped us out by profiling businesses and keeping that spotlight on them. So if you talk to them, please let them know that we're very happy.
Thank you. I don't, on that line too, I'd like to just to pass on what the merchants have said to me in dealing with our contractor. They found the contractor to be very available. The contractor does an excellent job of communicating as well. So fortunate, so far the communications have been well handled and not an issue, which if some of us have memories of 20 years ago, well, it wasn't the issue 20 years ago.
Right. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
The Veterans Services Officer, Mr. Bailey, is here to talk about Memorial Day. Welcome.
Good evening. Real quick, I met with your former selectman and now Finance Committee member Mike Jakonski. He's still going to do the master ceremonies this year for the Memorial Day. So our proposal is to do the ceremony like last year. If you remember, we did it up in the chamber. Is to move the ceremony, the full ceremony, as before, out into the park, so that more people, if they want to, they can spread out as far as necessary. Do the ceremony in the park, and then, much like last year, then go as a smaller group, and any people can join, obviously, out to the World War I Monument at Hamilton Square, Woodlawn Cemetery in St. John's with the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Ward and the chaplain, and lay the wreath there, and then that'll be it. But there wouldn't be a parade this year. That's our recommendation. I have one veteran that's willing to help me, so there's really three of us kind of putting it together. There is no longer a firing detail. That's was done by one of the local organizations. They're no longer doing that, so it's going to be scaled down anyway. So that's kind of our proposal. And I just wanted to get any input from you guys, and also let you know. And then if you're all good with it, then I'll reach out to the facilities director and the Parks and Rec and the different organizations or different departments rather that help, that have a role like setting up the stage. And I do have the company, the two gentlemen that do the sound system in the park have already contacted me. I told them I'd call back tomorrow, let them know, what we were, because we wouldn't need the sound systems at the other destinations, just really Central Park. They used to kind of leapfrog us up to the Woodlawn and because you had such a big group with the bands, and I still will reach out to the to Mr. Cermak for the get the band and get the valedictorian and so forth. But that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Any questions? That all?
Yeah, but last year, remember, we did it up in the chamber, so that will just do it outside. Yeah, and I had met with Mike Monday night up at the school, and I had talked with him on the phone, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't come out here tonight and say something and have Mike call me and tell me that was a stupid idea. Okay. So we're on the same sheet of music.
Sounds good. Thank you. Let us know how we can help.
All right, now while I'm here, is there any way you could take me out of order and let me do my budget?
Any opposition to that?
Take what?
Take the budget out of order so we can talk about better service budget?
In the interest
We just had to listen to him last night.
in the interest of efficiency.
I'll allow it if there's no opposition. What do we have? Are you going up this year?
Yeah, and I'll give a quick rundown for those that are new to the board, but really, other than I go up a step, I'm not really sure, how many years I've been here at this point, but everything else I just want the same as I've had last year. I want to be level funded. For those that are new, when I started 6 years ago, if you look at the veterans benefits, it's $200,000. 6 years ago, that was double. It was about $400,000. In little smaller increments as it went past, we realized every year I wasn't having to spend all that. So I've given back $200,000 over really a 5-year period, because the first year I kept the same because I didn't know what I was doing. at the end of every year, even after giving that back, like this year, I anticipate at the end of June having probably somewhere in about $80,000 to $90,000 again to give back to the town. But that money, the veterans benefits, goes toward, medical and assistance to the elderly veterans, but it also provides a kind of a secondary unemployment benefit for younger veterans, and not knowing, what's going to happen here in this year. It also helps pay for funerals for people that are veterans or their dependents that pass away that don't have the assets. So I would rather come to you every year and say, hey, here's, $50,000 or $80,000 left over, than to cut this again and come into this board and say, in the third quarter, say to Mr. Ward, hey, I need $50,000. So that's why I feel comfortable just staying where I'm at. The other items, the memorial fund I'm fine on, miscellaneous is fine on. So really, that's kind of where I'm at there. And the other part, just on the chapter 115, that veterans benefit. When if a veteran moves into town, no matter when it is during the year, we take that veteran on that next month. So I can't, we have a lot of, in a good way, we have a lot of veteran low-income housing where our veterans are getting preference. So we do draw veterans. So if they come from, say Marlboro, as soon as the first of the month, Marlboro drops and we pick them up, and it's hard for me to anticipate that. So I don't want to come in here and, tell you I don't have money. I'd rather give some back at the end of the year. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Any questions for Mr. Bailey?
Just one clarification for some members that might not know this. This money is most of it is reimbursable if we spend it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. The veterans benefits, you'll get 75% back. I don't know if it's a year off. I don't know when, So the end of the fiscal year, I get a report every month I give to John Kittredge, and it shows you what right, Billy, to Clinton's cost, and then the 75% get back from the state, and at the end of the fiscal year, at some point, you'll get that back in a lump sum. That's correct. Thanks, Bill.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
All right, and last thing, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank, I do this every year, I want to thank the board, both, in the 6 years I've been here, both the current selectmen and your predecessors, to not just to me, but to the veterans of town. Anytime, I've come to you guys with anything, the support I've gotten and the constructive input, I was confident if I came in here and you didn't like what I had, you'd be honest with me. And I do appreciate the input from the board. Thanks.
Very least we can do. Thank you for what you
Thank
do.
you very much.
Have a good night.
I'd like to continue discussions on a way for the town to honor Gordon Langton, who passed away recently. I was hoping to hear, to get on the same page with some former NIPRO employees who reportedly were planning something. I haven't yet. So my proposal, if it pleases the board, would be to declare April 24th, which is Mr. Langton's birthday, Gordon Langton Day in Clinton, to do a proclamation which I think Michael can draft up and we can review on the 21st probably. And again, at the suggestion of Mr. Duffy, to make the corner of High and Union Street across from NIPRO something like Gordon Langton Corner or Langton Corner, and just have a sign up there as some kind of more permanent recognition of his contribution to the town.
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. Isn't that corner already have a sign on it? By maybe it was right where...
I saw they put something up at the museum.
No, this was for a veteran, I assume, but...
Okay, well, I don't want to...
like where Bruce Vitone's barbershop used to be.
Okay.
I don't know if it was actually on the corner. I seem to remember something, but
all right.
I think we should just check that before.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No. I'll double check that. Assuming that there isn't a conflict there, and I guess we could finalize things on the 21st, I just want to,
If I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, I'll make the motion now to declare April 29th, Gordon Langton Day.
I think 24th.
24th, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
24th, Gordon Langton Day, and to name the corner of High and Union, Gordon Langton, whatever, corner.
That's what I thought too. All right. Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Special town meeting warrant review and date. A final warrant's been prepared for approval. An issue came up at the last Selectmen's meeting that requires action at this town meeting. The Department of Public Works is requesting that 2 additional articles be placed on the warrant in order to accommodate advertising requirements. The date of the meeting now should be set for Monday, April 26th, 2021. We have a warrant include. I don't have the warrant here. Do you have it? Yeah, thanks. Do you want to talk about this, Michael?
I don't have one either.
Plenty here.
Thank you. Mike,
He needs one too, Michael.
I need one too. Thank you.
So it would now be 3 articles instead of 1. Do you want to fill anybody in? Are we all?
Just talk a little bit about,
If you don't mind.
There was an article at annual town meeting. We need to reduce the amount of that article that was funded at town meeting. We have to reduce that from 4.2 million down to 3.1 million. So it's something that we needed to get done at a special town meeting, and the issue just came up last week. So we're hoping we could add, the board would add those 2 articles, and instead of doing it the holiday week on the Tuesday, it would just allow us to advertise the warrant and have town meeting on the following Monday. So it'll be the last Monday in April, on April 26th. So.
Any questions from the board? What do you need from us?
Just to vote to approve the warrant as presented, and then we'll have it published in the newspaper, and we'll have 2-week notice for the meeting for the town meeting on April 26th. And then also in this Friday's paper, we'll be publishing a notice for a public meeting or / hearing for your next selectmen meeting on April 21st to consider the special quorum requirements for a town meeting due to COVID. And the town moderator will be attending that meeting as well too, to discuss that with the board. And if all parties agree, then the board can vote to reduce the quorum for that special town meeting. So
Thanks for the clarification.
so both those notices will be in the paper Friday if the board approves this, and then the 21st you can vote the quorum, and then the 26th would be the town meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the warrant as proposed for the special town meeting.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, 5-0.
Thank you. I just want to appreciate the help from town solicitor that put all this together for us. I appreciate his work and efforts. So.
All right, I was asleep at the wheel and we let the Board of Health go when their budget hearing is now. I see it's level funded.
Well, if they don't present it, they don't get it.
So if we have any questions on that, please let me know and I'll share them with the Board of Health Chair. My apologies. We did Veteran Services, Parks and Rec. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Do you mind?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I think you guys all have copies of our budget?
It was in the packet, yep.
We're really looking at the level funded budget just to keep the same services going. You know, hoping that next summer is going to be back to normal camp summer. Under recreation miscellaneous expenses, a few things went up with the addition of Fuller Field. I also moved $2K from Fuller Field Power over to ours, and $3K from Fuller Field Miscellaneous over to ours for porta potties and such things like that. The only thing we were uncertain about is $25,000 that we'd like for the broken water main valve at Fuller Field. It presents a safety hazard. Our commission is prepared to request it in a warrant article at the next town meeting or within the facilities budget.
Yeah, do we know? I was wondering if facilities would cover that.
Yeah.
We were unsure if facilities had that or...
Yeah, I think we'll have further discussions on that, and we can let you know further from there.
Okay.
Either way, if it would be in the domain of the facility department to make
Yes.
get it done. So it may be in their budget, or it may be a warrant article, but it'll be their responsibility to do it. And when we have these discussions, I'm kind of concerned that the 25 grand number is just somebody pulled it out of the air, and maybe we should explore that and make sure that it would be enough.
Okay.
We had received a written quote about 2 years ago, so it would be no
It'll be
longer
more.
valid.
Is there any questions that I can answer regarding this?
We good? Thank you very much.
Just to interject, I was also working with a couple different groups on Gordon Langton dedications and ceremonies too.
Okay.
So I wonder if they're the
Maybe,
same.
maybe we could talk.
Yeah,
all right,
I'll know a little bit more and then I'll email you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
Is Chief Lutz here? Fire Department?
I think the chief had confirmed to be here, but I think just before I came down, I think I heard my phone going off, so he may have had to reschedule, so.
Okay.
So I'll reach out to him tomorrow and make sure that we have a discussion at the next meeting, because I think we're hoping to kind of really delve into a little bit more of the paramedic discussion
Yep.
to see if there was any possibility to do something at this town meeting, so.
Okay. Moving on. Administrative business, we have no administrative business. Moving on to old and new business. Representatives from Milkmen Cultivators LLC have agreed to the provisions of a template host community agreement as drafted by the town solicitor to site a marijuana cultivation facility at 75 Green Street. Draft agreement.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Is in your packet. Are there any questions? What's the pleasure of the board? Oh.
And that fee under the agreement is required to be paid upon the time that they sign the agreement. They asked if they could pay that fee at the time that they actually make their first annual payment once they're up and running. That was the one change that they requested. I told them that I would take it before the board. So that was the only change they wanted. They wanted, instead of paying the processing fee at this time, they want to pay the $5,000 once they're up and running, and when they make the first annual payment to the town.
Is that a good sign that they don't have $5,000 to pay us at this point, or?
Up to be completely transparent and full disclosure, I'm not sure all the entities that have actually, we've signed host community agreements have actually paid the $5,000 anyway. The town administrator, we were speaking about that. We're going to follow up, but I think only a few of them have paid that. So there's several of them out there who don't believe have paid the $5,000. So we'll have to follow up on that. But their request here is not to pay it now, but to pay it just to change the agreement so it says it's due at the same time, the first annual payment.
Mr. Chairman, as long as we're not jeopardizing the other agreements that we already made, I'd be comfortable with postponing that payment until the first regular payment is due to the fact that these things keep changing. The rules for these applicants keep changing every day, and whether they get to go forward or not seems a very comprehensive process, and I'm confused now about how many host agreements we've agreed to and what the actual location is for those agreements, and because it's such a volatile situation for people trying to get a business going, I'd be comfortable with waiting until the first regular payment's due, if it doesn't jeopardize our efforts to collect the previous agreements we already made.
Those agreements are self-standing. They stand on their own.
Right.
They're contracts, and we can follow up on those. And the fact that this agreement reflects something different, that doesn't impact the other agreements.
Any other concerns or questions about the change in the agreement? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agreement as amended.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, on
Yes.
that topic, I'd like to request an update of how many applicants we have out there and the actual current proposed locations. And maybe, you did one not that long ago, but I'd like to know the status of where they're at. Right.
Great. I'll put that on the next agenda. Recent state legislation allows the Board of Selectmen to continue early in-person voting upon request of the town clerk. The town clerk indicated the only election for 2020... Yes.
You skipped over the caucus.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Municipal caucus. Recent state legislation signed by the governor allows municipalities to cancel their annual caucus if the Board of Selectmen determined that holding the caucus would pose a threat to public health and safety due to the 2019 novel coronavirus. Did we have one last year?
Last year, the board voted to cancel the caucus under that exact provision. They amended the provision this year just to extend the date, so now you can take the same action. Of course, the board has to, you just read the key language, the board has to find that it would constitute a threat to the public health. If the board so thinks that's an issue, then you can vote to cancel the caucus, or you can vote to postpone it until sometime, prior to June 30th. Actually, I think the date's it's July now. You can postpone it to some time. I don't know the exact date. Last year we didn't postpone, we canceled.
They need 25 for that? Is that what it is?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So in theory, we could have it in here and we could have social distancing? Okay.
I think the requirements of the auditorium would allow that number to be in here. I think they can have up to 50, I think. So certainly it would be possible to still hold it. I know situation's different from last year to this year, so
Yeah.
it just requires, just wanted to bring this forward to the board's attention because the legislation just passed a few weeks back, so I just wanted to make sure we had the board review it.
Thoughts?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Any question? I mean, I'm of the opinion that the caucus is kind of silly, but I don't want to stand in the way of our democratic process. I guess.
I was digging through my notes here. Which item are we on?
We're on the caucus, the second one in old and new.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I personally availed myself of the use of the caucus at one point, back when I ran for school committee at one point, and it was obviously valuable to me at the time. But I do believe the caucus is an outdated, not essential carryover from the days when we had partisan elections. And that's what it was. It was an opportunity for people to get on the ballot that weren't nominated by one of the two parties. So personally, I think it's time that we get rid of it. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to get rid of it by virtue of the COVID issues, but I'd be comfortable with canceling it again this year and putting an article on the warrant to terminate the caucus permanently. That's a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded to cancel the caucus this year for public safety concerns and put an article on the town meeting warrant to cancel it permanently. Any discussion? Hearing none. All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. I look forward to voting that at town meeting. Now, sorry, back to in-person voting. The town clerk, to continue, the town clerk indicated the only election for 2021 is a municipal election, so she is still reviewing the need for in-person early voting.
So again, as part of that legislation that the solicitor just mentioned, it allowed the extension of early in-person voting. It was very popular for the state and federal elections last year, but now this year the only election is the town municipal election. So the town clerk would need to make a request to the selectmen, and then the selectmen would have to authorize it in order for us to do it again. So the town clerk is still reviewing her procedure to see if it's something we feel is necessary, since it's only the local election. Their mail-in balloting will still be allowed, so people can still mail in, without actually, having that 2-week period or whatever, that people could come in here to the auditorium to vote. So the mail-in will still happen. I think the town clerk, Holly Sargent, indicated that last year's municipal election, there were 407 mail-in ballots. So, so with just 400 mail-in ballots, that probably would cover anyone's concern that would need to come, and then we could have the in-person voting on election day. So, so she hasn't made the request as of yet, but again, I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention as part of that legislation, because if it is going to be done, it would be something that the board would need to authorize.
Okay. To be continued?
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
could. We talk about civic engagement frequently, and I think even though maybe you wouldn't need extended hours on early voting, I think it is a valuable resource worth considering, even if it's just a couple hour periods, leading up to it, where people can actually come in and you don't have to wait to the day of if you don't, request a mail-in ballot. But I think it's something worth considering.
Anything else on that?
I would just prefer to wait till we hear from the town clerk.
Duly noted. Health Insurance Consultant Agreement. NFP Corporate Services LLC has provided a consulting agreement to review the current employee health insurance services. Draft agreement is in your packet. Mr. Ward?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This here, NFP has done work for us in the past. They've worked in conjunction with Myrick O'Connell when we've looked at our health insurance program in the past. We haven't done it for several years now. So, A, we want to try to make sure we're keeping current in what the offerings are out there, that we're doing the best we can. But also, B, the current consortium that we're in have had some changes. Some communities have left. So we're one of the bigger communities in the consortium now. So we just kind of at least wanted to evaluate our current plan, what our offerings are, what else is out there, whether we can get a better deal. We just got an announcement that Fallon Healthcare is going to concentrate on the Medicare markets, and they're not going to be offering employer-based plans come a year from now. So we have to plan for that. And then there was a recent announcement that Tufts and Harvard Pilgrim, I think, are going to merge. So it's going to reduce those offerings. So we currently offer those individually right now, Fallon, Tufts, Harvard. So there's a lot changing in the healthcare market right now. So I think between the treasurer and the human resource manager, myself, I think we felt it was time that we needed to take a look at this. Anything that's done or any changes that are proposed would have to be done by the Board of Selectmen upon recommendation from Insurance Advisory Committee, which makes up representatives of the unions and the retirees. So I think we need to have a consultant kind of put together the playing field for us, and then would have to work with Myrick O'Connell about approaching the unions and see whether or not there's any need based on the numbers or the plan design availability to change to the group health insurance for the state program or another consortium, or maybe if it's even feasible for us to go on our own. And we had done that a number of years ago. We were our own group, and the rates started rising, so we went into a bigger pool. But now that pool is changing, so I think it's time that we need to kind of refresh where we're at. And for $5,000 for NFP, they did a great job for us in the past. And for that kind of money, I think it was very low for them to come in and do this work for us. So it's going to take several months. And then over the summer, we'll probably come up with some recommendations over the summer for the selectmen to review. So.
Any questions? It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the $5,000 for the health insurance consultant study.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Town administrator has provided a draft of an internal internal controls policy for federal grants administration for compliance with requirements of the U.S. Department of Justice. The draft policy is in our packet. Mr. Ward?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, I think it just uploaded today, so not looking for a vote tonight, but I just want to present to the board kind of just a written policy, internal control policy that the U.S. Department of Justice was requiring. The policy that I presented in the packet is just kind of a written steps of what we currently do right now, but they wanted it reduced to writing so they would have it in their files. So this is kind of some of the areas that they were recommending that we address. So we put that together and, looking for if the board would adopt it, say at the next meeting, then they want us to distribute it to any grant employees that handle grants from their agencies. Mostly would be the police department, to ensure that everybody is aware of the process and the procedure. So it's just a federal requirement, and then it's probably once we get that done for the DOJ, I think Mr. Duffy was indicating that the HUD is also looking for one for the federal grants that we get through the block grants and different funding, federal funding from the Department of DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. So just updating these grant policies to get us in compliance with the funding that we're receiving from federal government. So.
Great. So we'll review that and talk about it next meeting?
Yep. So if the board wants to review, and then we can put on the agenda for a vote at the next meeting.
Thank you. Moving on to landfill administration agreement. We've discussed this before in the past. We just need to approve the agreement for landfill administration services as negotiated. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the previously negotiated landfill administration agreement.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. No? 4-1. Thank you. Mr. Kobus in opposition. Michael and I met with our regional representative from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and I know we talked after Mr. Zapantis retired about looking at the future of that position. As it turns out, we were notified that in the absence of an acting director, or in the absence of a permanent director, that role falls to me. So we met for about 2 hours. They're very eager to work with us. I have no intention of keeping this job for any longer than I have to, but Michael and I thought that until the police chief position is filled and we have all our options on the table and how we want to go forward with this position, that we need to appoint me officially anyway, just because we have no director right now, and that would be bad if something happened. So I would accept the motion to officially appoint me, in the motion I least expected to hear in my time here, as acting director of the Clinton Emergency Management Agency. Going forward, I've already been invited to a bunch of meetings, and our rep has offered to come in and help us get our plans up to date, which may or may not need to happen, but like I said, they're very excited about emergency management and very excited about working with us to make sure we have all we need. So I will do the best job I can, and hopefully we will get this in proper hands sooner than later.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint the Chair, Sean Kerrigan, as acting director of Clinton SEMA, or SEMA, and authorize him to delegate responsibilities from that position as he sees fit to various employees.
Duly noted. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I have a line on a fleece vest, but if anybody can find me like an underground bunker, that's, I don't know if my Batesman's going to do there. So
I could offer some space.
All right, something to think about in case something hits the fan. Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Just to mention, Mr. Chair, as you talked about it, it was a good meeting, and there are a lot of different models that we can look at, from police chief to fire chief to board of health. or another volunteer. You know, we did get one letter from someone, so I think it's all on the table right now, and just to kind of look at what's best going forward in the future. But as Mima indicated, that in the event something hopefully doesn't happen, that at least the chair would be the official director, and then it gives us time to put the rest of the plan together.
I'm excited with what we talked about. Like I said, they are very eager, and he said I can call him any time of the day or night. And there's resources, there's webinars, there's workshops, there's everything. So regardless of who we appoint for this, I think there's an opportunity to maybe try some things just to see what's out there as far as resources to us, whether that's grant funding or preparedness exercises. It was an interesting 2 hours. So more to come on that. I might have one next week, believe it or not, but I will keep you posted. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Recent legislation provides that municipalities can opt out of aerial mosquito spraying by the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board by vote of the Board of Selectmen with an approved plan submitted by May 15th, 2021. Anything on this?
Yeah, just to briefly talk about, Mr. Chair, as you read, there was recent legislation, and they've just come up with the regulations for it now, that the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board does aerial spraying around the state. So municipalities can opt out of that aerial spraying. It's different from the Central Mass Mosquito Control Project. So over in Northborough, there's an agency that provides our culvert cleaning and spraying, and they do the kind of on-the-ground stuff. So it's not them. It would be the state does the aerial spraying. So it allows the municipality to opt out. But they only just they only came out the notification last week, and you have to have a plan in place, an approved plan to them by May 15th as to how you're going to address the mosquito control concerns without their intervention. So we'd have to kind of come up with a way that we're going to make sure that public health is satisfied without their spraying. If we do it another way, or we're going to maybe have the Central Mass Mosquito Control people do more of aggressive on the ground stuff. So it's something we'd have to put a plan together. So I just want to bring it to the board's attention if it's something that we want to go back to look at, or if it's something that at this point, based on the EEE and the other concerns out there, whether we just want to allow the state to continue doing what they do, each year.
Questions?
Spray away.
It seems to be the opinion of the board that we can keep it as is for now? Yes. Okay. Do we need, we don't need to vote to not opt out? We're good with doing nothing? Okay.
Right,
Great.
right. If you're not opting out, there would be no action.
Okay.
Yeah, so the only thing is by next month, we'd have to submit a plan if you did want. The board would have to vote, and we'd have to submit the plan in order to opt out, but if you don't opt out, there's no action taken. The state will just do what they've always done.
Great. Moving on. Mr. Kobus has asked to discuss creating a standard letterhead design that all departments could use for official business.
Yeah, so I think just based upon what the Board of Selectmen uses and the school department, having something that's uniform for any town department, if they're sending out any communication or if they're posting anything on the town website, that it has that, it uses a similar model versus, right now there's really no consistency between the departments.
How's that handled now, Michael? Who's in charge? I mean, do we have anybody in charge of stationery? It just goes, I imagine it's department by department right now?
I'm sorry.
Who decides? Like, how would we do this?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Like, the board, I'm sure the selectmen could make a directive to say this is the standard stationery, and most of the departments are under the selectmen's jurisdiction anyways. There would be some elected boards, like the library, the Parks and Rec, would probably be the biggest ones, because others like the planning board and stuff like that, they really don't, wouldn't really have, I think, have a concern. But the library and the parks do have their own branding that they've done, and they have all their own symbols and logos and all that. So I don't know, the question, I guess, would be is, can we impose a stationery on them? But even, I think it's certainly a good idea having the same message going out to from all the town departments. But also we would kind of need to kind of bring people together to talk about it too, because some of the, like the public safety departments, as I know the chief was here as well, they kind of have their own from years ago. They have their own kind of unique stationery. So it would be mostly kind of look at the public safety departments and then library and the Parks and Rec. So, but I think beyond that, most people have. They're all like I think Selectman Comas indicated. They are kind of like different colors and maybe different headers. So if everyone's just willing to say, hey, here's a standard one, I think people would be okay with that. I can't speak for everyone, but the ones that kind of have the unique logos or branding, that's something we'd have to have some more discussions. And if there's disagreement, then we'll kind of need to get some further guidance on what we could do or not do.
I don't think I've ever given an opinion on stationery.
Yeah.
I'm not imposing that we eliminate the library, anything that's pre-existing, but, there are things that are posted on the town website that there's no uniformity between the information that's contained. That's all it comes down to. So whether it's something that's proposed as far as, who's the director of the department, the address information, contact information, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not suggesting that we tell the Parks and Rec they have to change their branding on the stationery.
Okay.
That's not what I'm suggesting at all.
Okay.
Or the school department, right? But something that any department that is releasing anything to the public, that department should have some sort of uniformity for that's all. That's it.
So, Mr. Chair, just to point of clarity, so you're not talking about like the image on the letter. You're talking about like the formatting of the letter you want to be uniform?
More or less the information that's contained, right? So when you look at the school department, they have the superintendent of the schools, they have the school committee, the select board has here, right? So that's all, just the information as far as who the director is, if there is a board that department has to refer to or is under the direction of, and address information, just very basic. I just don't think that we should be releasing anything to the public that is basically on a blank sheet of paper.
Sure.
Whatever the information, that's all.
But the insignia or the seal, like the town of Clinton, you're not insisting that be officially part of the, okay. So
If they don't have one, then I would encourage them to put
no, that's
it on
fine.
there.
I just want to understand it better. I can make a motion, but talk about it first. Maybe we should why don't we try it just on a volunteer request basis first, see how many departments are okay with it, and then kind of see how many we are able to get, how many are still outliers, and then we can kind of meet with them to see if, so I'll make a motion that we formalize the formatting of our outgoing letterheads, is that the right way to say it? Upon request only.
Motion?
Second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have real concerns about attempting to direct independent boards, maybe suggest to them or request from them, but we don't have the ability or the authority, I believe, to tell the school committee, Parks and Recreation, the library, the planning board, other than the direct departments that report to the Board of Selectmen. I don't think we have that ability to direct them to do that. I certainly support the idea of soliciting their point of view and cooperation and having a consistent outgoing message. I support that, but on a much more flexible request outline as opposed to I mean, I'm sure the police department has a letterhead. I'm sure the fire department has one. And asking them to change it, I'm not really inclined to do that myself.
And that's why I stated that that's not what the request entailed or involved.
And the information I think you're asking to have on the letterhead is on the website and on their webpage when they open it. So if that they're putting a notice out on the website, it still has that information. If town department that has that lacks that information on the website, but I could be wrong.
And just to be clear, Mr. Chair, the motion I made was for just a request. It's not, so if any of the departments don't feel comfortable moving forward with this, this is nothing that we're imposing. And this is, the reason I'm agreeing with the suggestion is I know I've been on marketing committees in the past, and I know that has come up. And I believe the schools currently they're going through a similar thing where they're trying to get universal branding or some sort of formality on the format of their outgoing communications. So I agree with Selectman Connolly that I don't think it's none of our business to be demanding, but you know, we are involved in a marketing aspect of the town, and I think a request to the departments, if they would be so inclined to work with us on some sort of a uniformity to our letterheads going out, I don't see the harm in it. And if it's not a big issue for them, and if they're willing to work with us, then it should be a simple. I don't want this to be this. We have bigger fish to fry to really worry about this, so this really shouldn't take up a lot of people's time. But if they're okay with it, and we think it'll help us out from a marketing perspective to have a little bit of uniformity to our letterhead, then I don't see the harm.
Yeah, I sat in on the most recent school marketing subcommittee meeting just to introduce them to Mark, our cable guy, and they talked about that at the end. They're looking at a branding effort, you know, whether that's, mostly it's like a visual identity with colors to make sure that uniforms are uniform.
Right.
Because right now it's, just a free-for-all. So I guess the question, would be what we're trying to accomplish. Is it an aesthetics thing? Is it making sure that people know who to contact? Is it a visual identity thing where do we want to talk to the schools? As someone who works in marketing, and we just did branding at my college, you can spend as much money as you want on these things. They go crazy very, very quickly. So,
right.
I want to make sure if people can't get in touch with the people they need to find to get, their services the way they should, then that's a problem. So I just want to make sure, I'm happy to, to vote for this. I just want to make sure that we know what the problem is and we're taking the right steps to solve it. So if you want everything to look the same, that should be easy enough, assuming it's not going to cost people to have to tear stuff up. But if we want to make sure that people can, have the phone number and email and a person to call, then that's something we should look at too. So, I'll support this. I'd love to do an inventory and just see what we have and how, wild and woolly we're looking at right now. So, this is a step in the right direction. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Sorry, I'm an aye. Personnel Evaluation Subcommittee would like to present a list of goals for the town administrator for approval as a result of the personnel review.
So there's two. There was at last week's meeting, or a couple weeks ago's meeting, we came up with goals, overall goals as a result of the evaluation. So there's a lot of overlap because what we went over at the last meeting and what I wanted to leave open for discussion and hopefully approval today were the overall recommendations from the evaluation. And I'm going to go over those again in a second. What I presented recently and what I'll be presenting for the first time tonight are the goals specific to the town administrator. So they're similar, but there's a lot of overlap, but there are some, like for example, the recommendations that came out of the evaluation at our last selectmen's meeting, that we wanted to give everyone time to review so we could discuss it if we wanted to. The first one was the creation of an assistant town administrator position. The second was a town-wide work electronic time clock system. The third was the creation and maintenance of a master list of action items that could be broken up into short, medium, and long-term goals just to keep all of our initiatives on target. The fourth was a organizational optimization initiative just in the town hall, just in an attempt to try to streamline and organize files and information a little bit better. The fifth was town resources to better guide citizens through the town approval process. And I just noted that this was something that was already, we had already done some work with this. I believe Mike or maybe even Phil at a selectmen's meeting months ago had presented I believe at the time it was a consulting service that they would make a bunch of recommendations. I think one of them was like some sort of a software interface where somebody who had to get something approved at the town hall could type in what they were looking, and then it would tell them you have to go to this board to get approval first, and then you have to go to this board, because that's been noted feedback that we've had with a little bit of confusion when you're coming to the town hall to try to get something approved. And the sixth was just approval to do a internal survey for the IT services for the town. So those 6 items were what was presented and emailed out for at last selectmen's meeting. And I was hoping to leave some time open at this meeting to see if anyone had taken some time to have some questions or concerns or different opinions about these recommendations. We could talk about this now. If everyone is comfortable with the recommendations, then my suggestion would be that I would make a motion that these proposals get approved. And I just want to reiterate that this list will be kind of a living list. So at any given time, the board can reserve the right to amend the list if somebody wants to bring something up for discussion and put it into the list of priorities. But I just wanted to first, before I move on to the specific town administrator goals, I did want to leave time open in this meeting if anyone has any discussion or questions or opinions on the proposals that were presented at last selectmen's meeting, which would be the overall recommendations that came out of the evaluation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
I support what was presented, but I do have concerns and reservations regarding the employee time accountability recommendation. I think we need to have a better way of maintaining data on employee attendance and those types of things, and vacation days and all those types of things. I think that we're deficient in that area and we need to improve it. But to the point of, are we talking about a clock management system?
It would be if any place where there's hourly employees, that especially special cases would have to be made for town employees that travel, like the inspectors that are constantly out in the field. You can't expect them to clock in and clock out every time, but any departments in town that are supposed to be, especially the service departments and any other departments where we would want to be aware of the hours worked and vacation time used and things of that nature, it would be some type of an electronic, whether it's a swipe card or a punch-in or a login at the desk. Those details have not been fleshed out yet, but in general, the concept of some type of a electronic system that captures the hours that employees are working is just the general direction that we would like to go in.
I'm struggling to understand who's an hourly employee. Are the Board of Assessors, for example, hourly employees?
I think that's probably more of a question for the town administrator.
No, the department head would be exempt employee, so hourly employees would be mostly the staff, the field staff, the assistants and the administrative assistants and the assistants to the directors. But most of the managers would be exempt, and just to confirm with town council, they would be exempt from hourly pay. So they're, if they worked 50 hours a week, they won't get overtime. They just get their regular pay. But if you're an hourly employee, you're supposed to get paid for any time over your regular day.
So how many are we talking about? Do we have, like, a
I don't have that information. I can get it. We can leave this one off. We can revisit it. I can gather more information.
I mean, I guess,
on it.
like we talked about the stationery, I mean, it sounds like, it doesn't sound like a bad idea. I'm just wondering what problem we're trying to solve here. Like, and does a time clock, if we have, hypothetically, managers who aren't, I just don't know what the problem is, what the result
Okay,
we're trying to get here.
so we discussed this at the last meeting, and what I said was, initially, I had fielded complaints that there were some departments, specifically service departments, that were not open the hours that they were supposed to be open on certain days. That's where it started. That's where the discussion started with Michael and the evaluation subcommittee. Michael had then brought up that for a while, he doesn't think it's efficient the way that right now we're tracking time for employees and the way that everything is siloed in all the different departments. So he thought that it would also be advantageous to have a system that, especially now that we have a human resources director, we have more resources that can centralize a lot of this information, that it would probably be an appropriate time to move to some sort of a centralized electronic system. And that's how we came to this recommendation of trying to move in this direction.
Mm-hmm. That makes more sense. Go ahead.
So, in speaking with the Human Resources Director, she had concerns that we may be out of compliance on tracking paid time off. And currently, right now, it requires, it's basically a paper trail. I think someone has to come up to the treasurer's office, if I'm not mistaken, to sign the information, and that may not always be done. So really, it's not, it may have started out as an accountability, motion, but it's simply in a technological advancement in a system that currently exists in the town. We are currently tracking paid time off and employees' time. It's just, it changes it to make it more efficient. It still would require departments to go in and check, for managers to check the time to make sure that it's in compliance, and it doesn't, it can be something as simple as logging in on the desktop, right? It doesn't require anybody to have to necessarily go through any strenuous steps, but it's just to create that tracking system.
Yeah, the details of it are still to be determined, and those details can be presented to the board as we move forward to get guidance on if we think a certain direction is going too far or is not going far enough. But in general, that's just that is the direction, that's the recommendation from that subcommittee on the direction that we think we should be headed in.
And so can we assume that the HR director is in favor of this?
From my understanding, she is in favor of that. We can double check with her tomorrow, or we can word the motion with,
She started out she's begun vetting out software and programs that exist for that purpose, which is where the Munis software, apparently there's Tyler Technologies may have the capability, so we may not even need to go out to another vendor. They may have that ability. So
yeah, that was another thing that came up in the discussion. This is, And this is why we just want to get approval about the general direction first before we start. We don't want to waste our time going down some of these details if we don't have the appetite to move forward. But that was one of the recommendation, was that we think that the Munis software that we are moving forward with, that there is some compatible application within that would be able to handle this data collection. So it's part of moving forward in this direction would be exploring that option, because we want to make sure that whatever we do use moving forward, that it is either a part of Munis or it's something that's compatible with Munis.
I'd be supportive of studying this, flushing out the details, finding out who's a participant in this, how it gets recorded, that type of thing. But I'm not comfortable with saying this is a goal and objective of the Board of Selectmen. I'm comfortable with acquiring more information. The devil's in the details, and I want to know what the details are before I jump on board with something.
Okay, so we can amend it to information gathering for the purpose of a townwide electronic. I'm fine with that.
Great. Any other questions? You had a motion?
So yeah, I would like to make a motion that we approve the 6 proposals that came out of that recommendations that came out of the evaluation subcommittee, and with the update to, as opposed to a goal, the townwide electronic time clock system would be an information gathering exercise for a yet to be determined, a further evaluation and approval, if warranted.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
So the second portion of this now is goals that we thought would be specific to the town administrator, because part of creating the evaluation system and now moving forward, we want to have a small number of goals that we can check in on with Mike 6 months and 12 months just to see how he's doing, if there's anything we can do to support him, any more resources he may need just to keep track of them. So what I wanted to do for the first time is just present those goals specific to the town administrator, and we have discussed these with him. He is comfortable with us presenting them, and just for your consideration, I won't be asking for approval for these tonight. We'll do it like we did last time, where this will be the initial presentation, and then we can take the time in between the meetings to think about it. So there's a lot of overlap, as I said. So what we would do is we can change the wording on the first. The first was the similar, the work time clock recording system for town employees initiative. So we'll change that to an information gathering exercise. The second goal that we had for a priority for town administrator was the rollout of the Munis software. The third goal was the organizational initiative. The fourth was the action item master spreadsheet creation and maintenance that we discussed. The fifth was his evaluations of all of his direct reports. That's something that we want to make a goal for the town administrator, and then we're working with the human resources director on forging ahead. Now that we've finished the town administrator's evaluations, it's time to set up the process for him to conduct his evaluations of his direct reports. And then the sixth would be, pending the results of the internal survey, possible improvements to the town IT services. But that is, we won't know until we get more information on the results of that survey. So, like I said, these goals, there's a lot of overlap between the two, but these are the recommendations that we think are specific to the town administrator and goals that should be specific to him. And I'm just conveying these recommendations at this meeting. I'm not requiring any action. I can discuss it now if anyone wants to, but my intent was just to present these and then give the select board a couple weeks to look into it and discuss it, and then we can we can review them again at the next meeting.
Any questions at this time? Okay, please review for our next meeting. We'll talk about it again on the 21st. Next up is a West Ledge streetlight update. Michael?
I called National Grid yesterday just to find out where it's at, and they're looking to get them out energized as soon as possible. We needed 3 revisions to our insurance policy to satisfy National Grid, so there was a bit of a delay there. But they told me yesterday they have everything they need from the town, and it's on them to schedule a crew to get out there and do it. So I'm expecting any time just for them to get out and get their 3 lights. They just need to energize those. They're already up and hopefully be running. So if I get a date, I'll let you know. But they couldn't give me one yesterday. So.
What's up?
Thank you, Michael.
Any other old and new business? Chief, we were concerned there was some kind of emergency you had to get to, so we skipped over your budget. Are you happy bouncing that, or are you prepared to? Great. That's all right. Well, sometimes we hustle here, so come on up.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Hang on, we're going to switch mics.
So we'll start right out of the gate with the ambulance enterprise fund. So we might as well just go right to the paramedic stuff to hammer out some of that stuff right out of the gate. I amended it up to $600,000 for a startup cost. So when you go to the next couple pages, you're going to just look. There's the first one is the town of Wayland. That's kind of an estimated, their salary range. Then the next page, you go to Northborough. That's their salary range. And then you go to the third page, and you go into Patriot Ambulance. That's an hourly rate. And then Sudbury, Charlton, Acton, and all their kind of base pay and ranges for their paramedics. So that being said, on the very last page, you've got the firefighters' salaries. So if you go all the way to the far right and you look at recruit firefighter on the top, and if I'm basing it just as an average on a differential of 12% base pay. So that comes out to be at a recruit firefighter walking through the door, if he was given a 12% differential to be a paramedic, would be $48,290. And then as he goes through the ranks to get the top firefighter, which takes 4 years, he would be at $73,293.17, as of the end of the contract that we're in today. So the 2 hurdles that you have with regards to the paramedic is, number one, is the funding is still kind of an unknown number. And then you question, well, how is it an unknown number? Well, it's an unknown number because in the union contract, there's no pay scale for paramedics. So you have to impact bargain with the union to come up with a paramedic-based pay. So until we have that, we're only taking a guess at what this is going to cost. When I broke it down and I handed it in before, I don't have it today, I know I definitely gave it to you, Billy, just a rough estimate, the overtimes, the tuition for the schools, and that's the ramped up school. And then all the clinicals. So you're looking at that as a number, but that's only for a year. The process, once you engage, everybody knows is a 3-year process before you're even at a paramedic base level. So no matter when we get into it and we agree to have a paramedic based pay, that's just the beginning of the process. So that being said, when you start to look down and you go to ambulance miscellaneous expense, up $9,000. A lot of the expenses I had to go up, and one of the biggest reasons we had to go up is obviously COVID. And so COVID drove everything extremely high. As we know, everything's extremely high. But just one item, just to point out specific, rubber gloves, which the guys use on a daily basis, went up 95%, just rubber gloves. So then you add your medicines in and everything, prices have skyrocketed. When you get down to the capital outlay on the very bottom, that's the 5-year lease for the new ambulance that we just got approved. So that's in there on the bottom. On the very, very bottom, on the budget notes, that's just the FY 2020 estimate of $5,500 on the salaries of the 4 firefighters that come out of the enterprise fund for retro pay from the year before. That's just kind of another number on the bottom. So that's kind of basically gives you the overlay of the ambulance. It's just a tough situation. Like I said, you can fund it and the money can sit there, but until you reach agreement with the union on a number, it's difficult. The deputy fire chief, he was the one that kind of just recently, got some of the because you look at the dates on the paramedic stuff, it's relatively new. He just gave it to me to try to help me out because it's tough. It's tough to get going. A couple other things I just want to point out just while we're on the budget. So just recently we had our 2 ambulances inspected. The state inspector comes out. So the state inspector came out and our backup ambulance, which we are replacing, which is on order, the new one, saw 3 cracks in the body, the box, and immediately took it out of service and said that ambulance cannot be used. We said, wow, that's kind of harsh, so we spoke to the inspector, and the inspector understood that, A, we have a new ambulance ordered, thank God, and he says, because it's our backup ambulance and it goes out between 1 and maybe 6 times a week when the other ambulance, our primary ambulance, goes to Worcester, Leominster, all over the place, he'll allow it to stay in service. So we were very lucky with that. One of the stipulations that he made upon us was that we had to have it appraised to be repaired. Not fixed, just appraised. So we went ahead and we had Guarantee Auto appraise what it would take to repair the box on the ambulance, gave it to us, we forwarded it to the inspector, and the state is going to allow us to keep the ambulance in service until our new one comes. Because obviously we run 2 ambulances pretty readily in the town of Clinton. When you jump over to the fire department, start with that. Anybody got any questions on the ambulance before I jump ship?
Chairman, I have questions about the
go ahead.
paramedic service thing, but I'd rather wait till you get done with your budget presentation overall, so we can go back to that.
Okay.
If that's all right. Sure. With both of you.
Yes.
So on the fire department budget, scrolling down, obviously overtime is always a contentious thing. This past budget we were approved $200,000. We're still going to be in that $375,000 range. And if you're going to ask me, the answer is yes. I'm in the process right now of hiring firefighters. I have the civil service list. I'm doing the query checks. The police chief's assisting me with the query checks, and we're in the process of hiring now. However, everybody knows how long that takes. It takes a while before you get them in, get them through the fire academy, and literally on the street. But we are hiring. Let's see. Really nothing catastrophic until you get down to apparatus repair and maintenance. So last year, I forget the actual number, what it was, but I put it up to 50. And then you say, why are you putting it up so high? We've got a town mechanic, etc. Well, what happened was last year, our 2013 ladder truck had a lot of oxidization. So we had Greenwood come up. Greenwood took a look at it, had it appraised, and it appraised at $14,000 and some change. It was prorated through Greenwood at 50% to the town of Clinton. So I says, let's fix it. That's what needs to be fixed. So we painted the ladder truck at a cost of $7,000 to us, and they ate the other $7,000. So now my newer piece, which is a 2015 Ferrari that came from Specialty Vehicles, 2 years newer, 2015, has got as many, if not more, oxidization problems in the paint. So I said, well, that's good, you know, because it's 2 years newer. That should be a little better pro rating. So I engaged them to come up and look at it. And the answer was, it's out of warranty. So 2 years newer, and it's out of warranty. The other one was a 13 and had 50% pro rate. Not exactly happy with them. I voiced my opinion. However, it didn't make any difference. So just taking an estimate, again, an estimate, because they never really give it to me in writing because I was a little hostile with them, was probably going to be about, you know, $12,000 to $14,000 to have that piece of apparatus painted to keep it. It's a 2015. So I got to kind of kick it up a little bit to be able to cover 100% cost versus only 50% cost, or which I was hoping to be only 25% of the town, where it's 2 years newer, but that did not work. And then really, when you get down, I put in for fire hose. Several years ago, obviously prior to me, Chief McLaughlin took it out, shifted the money around for some reasons, but now we're getting to the point where we need hose. So I put $5,000 back on for the hose. When you talk about miscellaneous equipment, same thing. Everything's expensive, prices are going out of control, and we're just trying to stay inside. And then on the very, very, very bottom, you know, I got the FY21, the $50,000 for the retro pay. And then I got an estimate, and it's only an estimate for a new cruiser of $65,000. And the reason I don't have a solid number is I've engaged the Colonial Municipal Group to get the bid, and you know, which we've used, and Chris uses, I've used. We bought our pickup through them, so it's hard to really come up with an accurate number yet. I'm still working on it with them, but that's just a rough number to give you some ideas. And outside of that, really, there's no real big catastrophic changes on there. Obviously overtime, but you got to ask for it, you know, because it's going to be a while before we're staffed, if we get staffed.
On the budget,
Yeah.
Chief, how many openings are there in the department?
Four right now.
There's four openings,
Yep.
and how many of the existing officers are not yet through the academy or?
We have one person right now that's in the academy, and she's out of the academy right now, scheduled to go back into the academy in like the beginning of May.
And all the other
others are done.
positions are fully
Yep.
functioning?
So the four new ones will have to get cycled through the academy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I jump to the paramedic? Or?
Yep.
Chief, how many positions are you contemplating to get the paramedic service?
Well, I think the question at hand is I've kind of fielded it around down there a little bit to get the sense of how many guys that are on the job physically right now as we speak that are willing to look at becoming paramedic. And basically, they all tell me it's all hinged on pay. And
It's
so
all what?
It's all hinged on pay. What's
Right.
the pay? Because it's a lot more training. It's you know, you're talking about a minimum of 18 months of non-stop school. So you got to dedicate yourself hard if you're going to try to do the accelerated program. So that being said, you know, I think we got probably maybe four, but you're still going to need at least a minimum of another four, you know, and then if through attrition, the town would hire paramedics. So you're going to need at least another four people.
If we hired these four people, are there already trained, available paramedics / firefighters available for hire right away?
No, so basically, obviously, we're regulated right now, still sitting here through civil service.
Right.
So civil service regulates, now I can call for a paramedic list. I might get nobody. I mean, I'm being honest, I might get nobody, because paramedics are in extremely high demand. And paramedics now, they know they have municipalities, and they will just walk in and they'll look at it and they'll say, if it's, nah, I'm good, thanks for the offer, and they'll go elsewhere. It's that much in demand. It's a very hard ticket. Paramedics are hard to come by.
At some point, if we hired 4 to 8 new personnel above and beyond our current staffing level, once they became firefighters as well and they were certified, that would bring the overtime account down next to nothing.
Oh, yeah, next to nothing, right, next to nothing,
In the
correct.
beginning, we would have an overflow
Right,
of employees
right.
until attrition brought us back.
Brought us back,
where we needed
correct,
to be.
yeah.
But it would take 2 to 3 years before we had paramedics up and running.
It's going to be 3 years minimum, once we get our feet in the door and wet. But like I said, if just say hypothetically, it gets approved for whatever the number is, boom, done. So the town meeting, we approve it. Until the union sits down and we impact bargain with them and reach an agreement on the pay scale, that money can sit there and stare you in the face. You really can't do a lot with it until you have agreement with the union.
But once we had that agreement, and whether or not it was civil service or not,
Right.
It would still take an investment of $500,000 for 3 years running before we
Correct.
saw
Correct.
a
Yep.
mitigation of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm trying to be realistic on the numbers, as realistic as I can, because until you really set something up, I use 12% because that's kind of like a little bit of an average. It could be as high as 15, but I'm just trying to be realistic and not go crazy, you know?
Mr. Chair? Please. What would you estimate the amount that we have to pay to other paramedics currently for if there's a transport to, to Leominster, Worcester, Marlboro?
You know what, I've seen those numbers, Matt, and I'm not going to tell you what they are right now because I check them with Diane, but it's up there, you know. So basically, the one that we use 99% of the time is the town of Sterling. So every time they come here and transport with us, we pay them $300. So there's times when, I might give them every 2 weeks, $3,300, $4,000. So I'm not going to say I know the actual number like that because I don't. I mean, I can check with Diane what that number would be, but it's not, it's up there.
So I did speak with Mrs. Magliozzi.
Yep.
And Chief about it in a 3-year window with Sterling alone, and I didn't know if you used
Yeah.
other departments.
Yeah,
but
pretty much Sterling.
It was it was $99,000 roughly is what the town of Clinton was paying to Sterling alone for the purpose of paramedics over the 3 over 3 years. Over each 3-year period was $99,000.
And I know that this past, few months, we've used them heavily. So it's definitely going up, as the state changes the regulations on us constantly and tells you, how you're mandated. And obviously now we're at a position where, as of lately, if we do a recall, so 2 firefighters go to Worcester, and then we got to backfill the station, so we have 5 there to take the next call, and we recall for 2. Sometimes we don't get anybody. Sometimes we get 1. Sometimes we get nobody. Sometimes we get 2 people. It just depends. If who's around, are people around. But it's getting worse. As of lately, it's been a lot worse. The last few times that we've gone mutual aid for fires out of town, and we need 4 firefighters to come in. 1 is at the station, 4 are at another town. We've recalled, we've got nobody. So we've had to bring in mutual aid from the town of Boylston to come and take our fire calls for us while we're in Leominster or West Boylston for a fire, and then turn around and have, for example, Lancaster on automatic response for an ambulance. So they would just tell us, we have an ambulance call, and they would tell Lancaster, you got to go to it because Clinton doesn't have anybody to go to it.
So to Selectman Conley's point and Chief's point, that even though that initial investment is sizable, we would recoup those costs almost immediately.
Mr. Chair, I think that's what, I apologize, the microphone, I don't even know if it's working, but that's what we have to determine, is what is the return on investment for what is the return on investment, and I think that's, Chief, would it be fair to say that the 2 biggest issues right now that you're dealing with are excessive overtime and the
Yeah, I would say definitely. The overtime is just, for years, we've tried to, like, when I say years, I'm talking, I've been chief over 3, Chief McLaughlin was 3 years, 9 months, so just nonstop hiring. It's just nonstop, whether it be through attrition, whether it be through people, going to other departments for different pay reasons, personal reasons, etc. It's just nonstop, and the hiring process it's difficult. I'm not, and just to give you some ideas, I got the list the other day, probably, I think it was the end of the month, and for the record, there's not one Clinton resident on the list, as in 0. 1986, when I came on, there was close to 200. Just to give you an idea. So there's nobody. Closest ones like Leominster and Fitchburg, and they're all over the state, everywhere. Yep. 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 Well, it was every other year, and then now, and then it would take, they would do the test, and it wouldn't get certified for like 11 months, 12 months, almost a year to get certified. So now this time they just did it, and it was a little bit different. It was electronic, and it was certified relatively quick. The word is, again, I'm not 100% sure on this, that they were going to try to offer it annually every year. But I can't say 100%, yeah, they're going to do that, because I don't know. And it really doesn't make any difference, because irregardless, you can do it every 6 months. If nobody wants these jobs, and meaning residents, I'm talking Clinton residents, there's people out there, let's be realistic, they don't want to get their hands dirty. I mean, I'm being 110% honest. I mean, the hiring process is tough. So you look at civil service, and civil service regulates how you do it. You have to hire 1 out of this for par, 2 out of this for par, 3, 4, 5 out of par. And then you have to give a reason to go by them. And then they have an appeal option if they don't like your reason why you passed them. It's brutal. I mean, Civil service has its place, but it's definitely an obstacle. It makes hiring harder. There's no doubt about it. My predecessor John McLaughlin told me that, and I thought it was kind of funny. I'll be honest with you. But now I'm in his seat, and it's a different animal, and you really get a good hard look at it, and you realize he was right. It's a hard obstacle to overcome.
Yes.
Bottom line is, as long as civil service, our hands are tied and we can't do nothing. Bottom line. Right, but don't we,
And Mr. Chairman, under the most recent negotiations, the union did agree to, sit down in a committee or informally to talk about those issues, the overtime and the civil service. So I think that's something we can pursue, to see if there's any common ground.
Chairman, I think maybe we should ask for a formal meeting with the firefighters union to engage on the conversation.
How would that work? Would they come here? Was it a full board thing, or?
Well,
No.
No, I think it was just going to be setting up a committee so we can talk with what that makeup would be. I mean, we just agreed in principle that there would be a committee would sit down to discuss it. So we can reach out to Labor Council and come up with what everyone's intent is for that makeup of the board. I'm sure there'd be board members, but I don't think it wasn't going to be the full union committee and the selectmen. I think they were looking to kind of do an informal committee discussion. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if we set up this committee, I'd request to be a representative on it.
Duly noted.
I would have interest as well if there wasn't any availability.
Thanks. So, Bob will talk to Nick. You'll talk to Nick and see what they want to do? Great. Okay. Anything else for the chief?
I just want to say that I'm personally supportive of establishing a paramedic service. The cost is huge, but I think aside from the eventual break even or diminished cost factor, I think it's important that we provide the service to the community. I think the nature of the fire service is changing anyways. I think every year the ambulance calls go up and the fire calls go down. And I think it's a good step going forward in the future. We have a good department, a good basis to build from. And candidly, sooner or later, the emergency room as it exists at Clinton Hospital will not be there for us. And everyone will have to ride in the ambulance to get to quality medical care. So I think it's something we really have to be willing to take the financial hit up front for the future of the town, long after we're all gone from here. That's my point of view.
I would echo those feelings. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's not as catastrophic as you would think to require that level of service.
Like Matt was saying, you look at what we pay for out of town, you look at the overtime costs, and then if you bring, technically we're supposed to be staffed with 25, so four groups of 6, and then an odd person down there. That was the odd one that was given to us to try to alleviate the overtime, which I don't even know. I think maybe 1 month we might have attained it. I mean, it's been that long, and this was back in Chief Hart's days when this was authorized. Well, it's been that many years to try to get this staffing to this level. So like Billy said, you turn around and you get the staff to a full level, and then if 2 firefighters go to Worcester, you don't have to backfill them because you have enough firefighters still there to staff at the second ambulance or fire call. So that's out. Then when you turn around and if your staff is at whatever that number is, we'll just use a number, we'll say it's 8. So you have 8 there, and 2 firefighters take on vacation during those summer months. Usually right now we're so low, there would be 4 overtimes, 2 during the day, 2 during the night, every single shift. So if you had 8 and 2 went on and you had 6 left, again, there's no overtime. So the overtime would be greatly reduced once you attain that staffing. It's just the hard work to get to attain that staffing.
Anything else for the chief? Thank you as always.
Sounds good.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Thank you, Chief.
I think Monday night I got my invitation to the Finance Committee. Wish me luck.
No more old and new business. Any committee?
Just one last thing, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair Carrigan. Can we focus on the sound quality for the next meeting?
Duly noted. Yep.
Right,
Yep. Yep.
And there was also discussion about when we could get back up into the chamber room. So,
Well, talk to Ed about that. Wow, you're ahead of me. Okay. We'll keep that under consideration. I missed the big chairs too, so.
Mr. Chairman, just on that same topic,
Yes,
please.
I know I want to get you up there before you go.
I would really like to leave the Board of Selectmen at my last meeting upstairs. That would be something I would look forward to.
It is my sincere hope that we make that happen. Any committee reports?
We had, the bylaw review committee had met. We're in the process now of looking at formatting and contemplating having a master document and, a citizen's version, so there, a lot of the historical data doesn't bog down the report, but overall, we're planning on meeting sometime in the next few weeks and continuing on.
Perfect. Any other committee reports? Hearing none, we'll be leaving open session for 3 executive sessions, all under Article 3 negotiations. We will not be re-entering open session other than to adjourn. So our next meeting is on the 21st of April. We'll do a roll call vote to head into executive session. Mr. DeVoe? Mr. Connolly?
Aye.
Mr. Cobus?
Aye.
Mr. Busnow? And the chair is aye. Thank you and good night.